Hi, I'm Olivia, aka Biblioghoul, and I'm finally going to be doing a January wrap-up today. I was actually in a little bit of a reading slump towards the end of the year, and then I read a few really amazing books, and that trend continued into January. So the first book was Homegoing by Gyasi, and I read, actually it's right here, Transcendent Kingdom, by them, and that was one of my favorite books that I read last year. So I was really excited to get to Homegoing because I heard so many great things about it. It is a historical fiction that sweeps through generations of family. It starts out in Ghana with two sisters, Afia and Essie, and they have no idea that they're related to each other, and one of them marries an Englishman and lives in this castle with them, and in the same castle the sister becomes enslaved and lives in horrible conditions in the bottom of this castle before being shipped off. It follows these different generations and their experience in two different countries, one in America and one in Ghana. And I think I liked Transcendent Kingdom better, but I still gave Homegoing 5 stars. The characters were well developed, but of course with several generations of people, you kind of wish that you learn a little bit more about the characters' lives, but it was still well written and a beautiful story. The next book I read was a little graphic novel that I just happened to see at the library. It is called The Women Who Changed Art Forever. It focused on Judy Chicago, Anna Mendieta, is that how you say it? Faith Ringgold and the Guerrilla Girls. I've read and learned about all of these artists before, so the content wasn't new to me, but I think this would be a really good book of introduction if you don't know any of the artists. I do really love how the book focused on really intimate moments and tried to imagine what the artists would be thinking as they created their famous works and had some of their best ideas. So I really enjoyed it for that. Rocco is trying to participate in today's video apparently. The next book I read was The Escapement by Lavi Tidar. I saw somebody talk about this on their channel and it got me interested. I think it was Jess. Yeah, I'll link her channel below. So this book is wild and it's not really like anything I've ever read before, and I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite book I read this month. It kind of has, if I were to say, I would say it has the vibes of something like Westworld, Phantom Tollbooth, or like a Neil Gaiman book. It is kind of a Western, but there are also clowns, and there's a lot of mythology and characters in tarot cards. So there's a lot going on. There's this character called the Stranger, who is on kind of this life quest to find this special mythical flower after his son dies. And the best way I can give you a sense of this book is to say there's one scene where they go into a town and none of the clocks work and everything is really slowed down and nobody can leave the town, and they have to break that to free themselves from the town. So there's a lot of tests and trials in that way, and yeah, more interesting plot points, but there was a lot going on that I don't know if it all knitted together really for me. So that's that book. While at the library, I also picked up Remina by Junji Ito, and I've read a few Junji Ito books and I've really liked all of them. This was the first one that was kind of meh for me. It was 3 stars, I'd say. It follows a girl named Remina whose father names this planet that he discovers after her, and the planet is like coming rapidly towards Earth, and at first everyone's like really excited, and Remina's like this big star, and then everyone starts blaming her for the planet as things turn sour. If you have a favorite Junji Ito book, leave it below. I want to read more in the future. The next book is my first favorite of the year, and that is The Matrix by Lauren Groff. This book follows Marie, who grows up with this incredible group of women in her family that fight in the Crusades, and then when her mother passes, I believe she's like she's the illegitimate child of some like royal person. So she is sent after her mother and like the last of her family passes to head this abbey that is kind of in shambles and impoverished. She's sent there by Eleanor of Aquitaine, and Marie kind of pines for her like throughout her life, even being removed from her, and she kind of hardens and builds this great like empire of an abbey to protect all of the women that she comes to care for, and to kind of prove to Eleanor like her worth. And she's sent to the abbey because she is viewed as ugly and too tall and like unmarriageable. And it is just so well written. Like, I need to read more by Lauren Groff after reading this book. And just to give you a sense of the book, this blurb that I read captures perfectly the essence of the book. It says, equally alive to the sacred and the profane, Matrix gathers currents of violence, sensuality, and religious ecstasy in a mesmerizing portrait of consuming passion, abhorrent faith, and a woman that history moves both through and around. So yeah, I'm so happy that A Sunny Book Nook talked about this book, because I love it so much. It's amazing, and if you're interested, you should definitely check it out. The next book is the only one I have in person right now, Prison by Any Other Name by Maya Schwenwar and Victoria Law. This book is very helpful if you understand how prisons and capital punishment are harmful, but haven't really thought about how systems of control operate beyond the prison system. This book talked about, for instance, policing in schools and treatment itself for addictions. It really painted a picture and had quotes from people who had been directly through this experience, and how these impossible goals to kind of reach within treatment and rehabilitation limit life and healing. Talked a lot about like surveillance and ankle monitors, and really how like people can't even go to take out the trash, and really it becomes how the prison system expands through the families of the incarcerated as well. Not that it wasn't when people are incarcerated behind bars, but when you are living with people and you can't even leave without permission, you're missing out on major life things just like you were before. You can't contribute to running the household in the same way. And it also has a chapter called Policing Parenthood that talks about how instead of investing resources in parents, the state and agencies take the kids away, and that leads to severe trauma for the children in the circumstance. So if you're interested in learning more about any of those topics, I recommend it. The next book is The Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton. I had heard Olivia from Stories with Coffee talk about this. If you love historical fiction, you should definitely read this book. It follows different generations and their experiences in Cuba. There is Elisa, who his family was in Cuba and was very wealthy because of their involvement with the sugar industry, right as Castro was rising to power, and they had to flee to America. And then it follows her granddaughter, Marisol, who is a writer and returns to Cuba to write about Cuba, but also to leave her grandmother's ashes there. And she learns a lot about her grandmother's life that she didn't know before, even though they were very close, and how she fell in love with a revolutionary. And there's a lot of really interesting discussion about the experience of people that had to flee Cuba versus the people that are still living in Cuba, the pain of knowing you can't return to your home, or feeling separated from your culture, but also feeling like although your culture is beautiful, you don't have the freedom to speak your values into existence and see the Cuba that you'd like to see. So yeah, I definitely want to read another book by Chanel Cleeton. I just loved her writing, and I listened to this on an audiobook, and I have really mixed experiences with audiobooks, but this one was so captivating and I really loved it. Another 5-star read from me. Next, I read 30 Names of Night by Zain Jukadar. This is one of those books that just does so much. It's impossible to encompass it all in a quick summary. So the main character, Nadir, is dealing with the loss of his mother and realizations around gender, identity, and becoming an artist, and trying to situate his identity in his family and friends' reactions. The book also follows the perspective of Layla Z, who was also a Syrian American artist, and the thread throughout all of these people and their experiences are birds. Yeah, it's interesting to read the experiences of different generations of queer Syrians, both in Syria and the present moment, and the generation before, talking about gender, sexuality, art, gentrification, community, and belonging. And again, another really unique book. So I gave into the hype and read Love Hypothesis, and I loved it just as much as everyone else. I love the fake dating and forced proximity tropes in romance, so I like this book. And it was also spicy, which is something I want when I'm reading a romance book. It's about Olive, who is a biology student. Is she getting her PhD? Yeah, something like that. And a professor in the program named Adam, and she just spontaneously kisses him to prove to her friend that she can move on with Olive's ex, who she has no feelings for and, you know, is completely fine with. So without thinking, she does this, and then it blossoms into a fake relationship that's beneficial for both of them. And it just follows how they sweetly fall for each other and support each other. And I'm here to agree with the hype. It was a great read. I think I gave this 5 stars. The last one is A Short History of Boston by Bob Allison. This is someone that we work with at my work all the time. And so my boss said I should pick this up to get more knowledge about the Boston area. I think this was fine for what it was. I think it was around 200 pages or less. But it did fall into the trap of focusing a lot on like the beginnings and the American Revolution and just a few pages on recent history. So although it was a good widespread history, there of course would be things left out. Those were the books I read this month, lots of good ones. January made me reevaluate my feelings on nuns. Should I learn more about nuns from the Middle Ages? And it was a month of a lot of historical fiction. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were, or if you want to read any of them. And if you could leave a bird emoji for 30 Names of Night and undoubtedly the most beautiful cover in this wrap-up, that would be cool. And thank you for watching!